And what we're going to do first is being done by our very capable district admin person. And we will acknowledge the fact that we're being recorded. Okay, welcome everybody. This is the District 5010 Team Training Assembly. And I'm going to begin by pulling up a PowerPoint here.
Okay.
Can everybody see that?
No.
Nope.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I know what I know what I did. I have to share the screen. Now let's try it. How's that?
Works.
Okay.
Working.
All right. Very good. So this is the now we've called this meeting a bunch of different things in the past. It's been called the strategic planning meeting. It's been called just a district training. I forget all the different names for it, but essentially what we used to do is we used to get together typically in Anchorage. And I think the last time we were at one of these live, I believe it was at the Foraker group. And pretty much an all-day affair, but people had to travel to Anchorage that didn't live there. So during the COVID pandemic, we actually went online and we did it as a Zoom meeting, and the attendance, not surprisingly, went up. So we've decided to continue that. Part of it is budgetary for the clubs and the individuals and so forth. It shortened up the program a little bit, but the idea here is what we want to do is provide everybody with a little bit of a cross section of, you know, what is going on in the district. And as I discovered very late in the game, this is something that's done by the DGE, not the current DG, and scrambling to put it together. So here we go. So what I'm going to begin with first is I want to introduce the leadership team. We've had a bunch of more, we have several other people have logged on. So let me just state again, if you have a question or if you would like to make a comment, we'll try to take those if we can. But the protocol, if you would kindly use your reactions button and raise your hand. We'll try to monitor for those. Janine will keep her eye on that. And we'll try to take questions as we go through. But I think, again, everything that's on the presentation here is going to be made available online. So what I want to do is let's just go through a quick round of introductions. And we are going to introduce the governor line, both the current and next year's assistant governors, same thing for the lieutenant governors, district treasurer and district secretary. And we have start first of all, this is yours truly. So this is Peggy and I, and we're at the International Assembly down in Orlando, Florida. I'm actually going to do a little update on this. It'll be kind of fun to share with you some of the things that we did and some of the things that were that happened. It's an incredible meeting and quite the training program. So DG Mike Ferris, and this is Shannon. Mike is going to be doing a presentation today. I think you're going to get a real kick out of it. There's some pretty cool stuff. Of course, he's with the Anchorage South Rotary Club, and they are quite a great couple, and they've been doing a real bang-up job this year, getting around to the district and making some things happen. And our wonderful DGN, Brenda Sheldon. We actually were at the Blue Denim program down at SeaTac at the Doubletree Inn, and had a chance for the DG line to get together and talk about things and learn a little bit more about what it is to be the district governor. The Blue Denim program, for those of you who haven't been to one before or don't know what it is, it's really training for the DGEs, DGNs, and then the DGNDs, what to expect, a little bit about the role of the district governor and so forth. So we had a great opportunity to work and collaborate, sort of advancing things. So here we are. This is our district governor nominee designate, Marty, and of course PDG Cheryl. And this is a little bit older picture I had, but there's no lack of consistency with these guys. They're in Hawaii right now, so they're still there. They're still doing their thing. So anyway, love you guys. We'll So Sitting Rotary Club is lucky to have you. Okay, and so let's go through the list of the assistant governors. This is Amy. Amy is currently the district governor for the clubs in the Anchorage area. She's done a great job for us down there, and she's in her third year now, and so we are going to have Bruce Erickson will step in, and he is going to become the district governor starting on the 1st of July. I'm sorry, the assistant governor for Anchorage starting on the 1st of July. I'm going to talk more about the assistant governors a little later on in the roles and priorities. So for the Mat-Su, Matt Steelstra, and a great photo of his family. This is pretty neat. Blueberry picking in the Hatcher Pass, and of course Rotary Club of Wasilla. So these are assistant governor for the clubs that are in the Mat-Su Valley. And in the northern region, Gretchen Gordon. The northern region includes the 5 Rotary clubs in Fairbanks, plus Barrow and Nome, and the E Club is actually in this group. So this is Gretchen's area. She's second year as an AG right now. And then Jess Gutzweiler down in the Rotary Club of Soldotna. She takes care of the peninsula, the clubs in Kodiak, and she's just a fireball. She does a great job. Of course, she's very active with a lot of different things in Rotary, Shelter Box, among others. And for Southeast, Sharon Bergman in Sitka. Another great picture of the family. I love the family photos. And Sharon, bless her heart, agreed to stay on an extra year. She actually had hit her third year last year and stayed on because we didn't have a replacement for her at the time. And she's done a great job. Peggy and I had an opportunity to attend a visioning session down in Sitka and talk to Sharon and the folks at Sitka in great detail. But that was a lot of fun to really be back. That's my old hometown, so it was nice to be back in the habitat. Okay, and then Michelle Strickler is going to be the new AG starting on the 1st of July, and she's with the Rotary Club of Juneau. And thank you, Michelle, for taking that on. This is going to be a really nice opportunity to see some new blood in this role. And again, I'm going to talk more about this as we get into it. I see Eric has a hand raised. Eric, go ahead.
Just real quick, Michelle is actually a member of our club, the Glacier Valley Rotary Club.
Oh, okay. Thank you. A good update on that. I will make a note to make a change in that. So it's the Juneau Glacier Valley. All right. Juneau Glacier Valley. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. And continuing on. And now to the district treasurer, George Elgie. Another happy, warm climate photo with his wife, Myrna. And then George he's actually in his third year as the treasurer of the district. And after some conversation, George, bless his heart, has requested to stay on and continue on in the treasurer's capacity. We have some significant adjustments we're making in the organization of the finances of the district. And George is about halfway mired into that right now and would like to finish that task. So I'm real happy to have him continue that. Eric, you still have your hand up. Is that a legacy or is that another question? Oh, okay. All right, let's continue on. And our district secretary, Don Poulton. Don is in his third year. He's done a great job for us. He's sort of the master of the MOP. He's been taking good care of keeping us on track. It's going to be a moment of transition, however, and we are going to hand off to the new district secretary in fiscal year 24, Paul Pasley. Paul is currently the grants chair, and so we've done some reshuffling of that, and we had an opportunity to visit with Paul at length during the zone meeting. It's called GETS, the Governor-elect Training Seminar that was held in Toronto, and he came to that. And it was pretty interesting having a chance to chat with him, but I think we're going to have a very, very capable secretary for the next 3 years for the district. Lieutenant Governors, Lisa Phillips. Lisa is just great. She did a wonderful job last year, is continuing to do a great job this year, and just a wonderful person to be able to, take care of business, track details, and keep things online. And then following, my deal has stuck. There we go. Lieutenant Governor Brenda Hewitt. Sorry, they got stuck and then it went too fast. Okay, so what we have, this is bouncing around on me. Brenda Hewitt will be the Lieutenant Governor in my year, and she is already actively working on helping out with a variety of just organizational things. So many of you will be hearing much more from her as we continue to organize for the year. Okay, and we would not be doing what we're doing today or much of what we're doing at all if it were not for Janine Becca. Janine is our administrative secretary, and she is probably the most organized person that I think I have encountered in Rotary. If you need to know where something is or what something is in District 5010, you can't find it anywhere else. Janine is the resource. So thank you, Janine, for what you do and everything that you have going on for us. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to begin, and the next item on the agenda is we have an update from Joe Casheye, and this is going to be on the strategic plan and the service committee. We're going to do these simultaneously. So Joe, I'm going to pull your PowerPoint up and get that started here. So bear with me just a second.
And I already started my timer to cut me off a couple seconds short.
Take it away, Joe.
Thanks. Well, I'll just get past this slide here. Mike, could you just pop it forward, please?
Oh, yeah, just shout when you
Okay.
want me to change them up for you.
Sorry, what's our strategic plan? Well, every district has to have a strategic plan. It's a general roadmap about how we want to develop in the future. It's not nuts and bolts. The nuts and bolts flow from that as circumstances permit. But we have tried to go and set the thing up in a way that we have a roadmap. Some prior strategic plans used, well, we're going to do this by 5%, that by 5%. I think a lot of us who've been involved in these things felt that they were numbers sort of pulled out of the air. And rather than have that specific thing, we'll have a goal, a general goal, and proceed from there with all possible effort. It was originally devised by the DG line in collaborative with each other in 2021, and then forwarded to the strategic plan committee. I should say the initial draft was by the DG line, and then forwarded to the strategic plan committee, and then ultimately approved as the 3-year strategic plan by the membership at the business meeting. It is reviewed annually, and everything's been sent out to people asking for any comments and reviews as they might have at this time. We'll expect to see any comments back by the end of February, and then any of that will be correlated to a brief report and forwarded to the secretary for the annual meeting. Could I have the next slide, please? Well, what are the goals? Primary goals, of course, we always talk about improving membership. Well, one of the issues is long-term member retention, increasing recruitment of new members. And this one, I think, over the last several years, particularly during this year with AFN, has had prominence, partnering with Alaska Native and other groups that are working to better Alaska. That obviously has both some service connotations as well as the whole notion of going and having additional places to grow membership. We'd like, one of the other goals is basically to achieve valid and substantive recognition for our district as an active and positive force in a way that's innovative and creative. That, of course, a lot of the things we have in the strategic plan as adopted 2 years ago have since been put forward by Rotary International as recommended good practices. So we're a little bit ahead of the curve. What's here now is what we have now in our strategic plan is as a practical matter very congruent with the recommendations of Rotary International. One of the other things we decided to put more emphasis upon was supporting membership and partnerships by going and creating very visible, high impact club and district projects. So some of the notions, I'm not going to go through all of them, they'll be out there, but that's going a little bit fast for me. Even I can't talk that fast. Can we back up to the prior slide?
Okay. There we go. That was
There we are.
All
Okay.
right.
We can go to the next one.
Okay.
But the basic changes, we put a little more emphasis upon partnerships with other groups in the state, AFN, the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortiums, which were involved with the just concluded Emergency Safe Water Project and the like. And by doing that, going in and getting something done effectively and very cost effectively, as Mike Paula did with the water project, what we want to do is raise the visibility of Rotary as, boy, now that's something I believe in. It's something I want to be a member of. In other words, why be a Rotarian? Well, here are some of the reasons, and you can see them. Other than that, we've just basically talked about the normal thing. As RI has suggested, we're evolving a new normal Rotary with hybrid clubs and the like. I think one challenge that the strategic plan envisioned, and is certainly something that's being worked on, is helping especially struggling clubs get afloat of their requirements and also sustain innovative cultures and effective service projects by more district presence and assistance. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, operationally, we've developed the DG team consensus approach, and that's been exemplified in the district's active board of directors, which consists of the immediate past DG, the DG elect, the treasurer, the secretary. And in that approach, we've attempted to go and implement a consensus approach, so that we basically have an effective action team with basically a consistent multi-year consensus direction. A part of that, of course, involves maintaining the district's financial stability and sustaining and growing district-wide signature projects. Mike, next slide, please. Priority 3 was just more impact. We want to increase service, and I think we've done that pretty successfully now, as I'll talk about in a few minutes, through very cost-effective projects that are basically helping to build our state. And then also go and look at, if you want to really leverage your effect and really get some impact, you leverage your effect by going out, as was done with the water project, and developing something new that really answers a question and then letting people know about it. By developing knowledge, we have a force multiplier on our effect. And then, of course, we want to help the clubs do that too, and expand our support for Rotary Foundation. Diane will talk about that later. Can we have the next one, please, Mike? Mm-hmm. And then number 4 flows from the prior ones of getting out there and actually being people of action, like we've been told to do, and giving people something to actually talk about that's already done. It's not just words, but it's something we have done. Can we go to the next slide, please, Mike? So talking about some of those, what are some of the recent district-wide high visibility projects we've done? Rotary Cares for Kids, if I recall correctly, and my memory may be deficient, was the first one. It's in the 6th year now, and there are multiple participating clubs, including my own. As you know, that goes out and that one goes out and helps kids who've been displaced as a result of problems within the home and where they've had to be taken into protective assistance by DFYS. That's one. FASD, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, outreach and education in the bush. PDG Diane will be talking about that more in her foundation presentation. The remote rural area, or the remote area emergency safe water project, Mike Paul spearheaded that. Started so when somebody in this same kind of meeting 2 years ago, in our February meeting 2 years ago, a member from the Fairbanks area said, we need to do something to help those without water. Well, we thought that the idea of competing with the state and federal government to fly in water wouldn't work very well and was really expected. So Mike Pollan sat down with some of the others of us and said, what can we do that will really address the issue? By, within a few months, Mike and John Dufendock of Camp Water Systems had a proof of concept totally worked out, and we knew it would work with the new approach to things. It was helicopter portable, and then thankfully, John Torgerson of Denali Commission was able to provide enough funds to go and make three more units using some of our excess reserves. Mike Pollan went out and was able to build a prototype unit with John Dufendock. As we know, it was helicopter portable. It worked. It would work in the Arctic in the winter when all these village water systems tended to fail. And it was the technology put together was a smashing success. And within another year, we had built a total of 4 units. They were distributed partly to the state guard, which could handle them in some areas, and probably to village health consortiums. Those are the sorts of things that really went and raised our visibility, and we were really doing something very effective. That project attracted roughly $212,000 in cash, some of which came from excess reserves and district Rotarians. About 3/4 came from the Denali Commission through its federal grants. That was matched by about 200,000 or so, if my memory reaches, in-kind donations of engineering services, testing, and the like.
Joe, if I might add,
Yeah.
The original funding for this thing was $25,000 out of excess reserves from the district. And then the actual numbers at the end of it, when we finally totaled everything up with, there was $177,000 in grants that we were able to obtain from the Denali Commission. And the rest of it was all in kind. The total project ended up clocking in at about $355,000. And the 4 units are all now fully deployed. One is in Nome, one is in Bethel. One of them is here in Fairbanks. That's actually one that was designed to be disassembled into 4 components and would fit in a Cessna 208 Caravan. And they requested that one because they just have such a huge geography that they serve. That was the best way to get around. Lots of caravans here in Fairbanks. And the last one is actually at the Alcantara Armory with the National Guard down in Wasilla. And the Alaska State Defense Force is officially the owner of that one, and they have taken ownership of the one in Bethel as well. But they have offered to provide flight support using Black Hawk or Chinook helicopters anytime these need to be deployed anywhere in Alaska. And they have General Brown of the Alaska State Defense Force says, we will get there in 24 hours. So it's unbelievable that, and I've got the Alaska State Defense Force gift hat to prove it.
Well, and we were able, that's now a commercial unit, and anybody who feels the need for one can just go and buy one off the shelf. An exemplar of an exemplar of an engineering knowledge development project that got brought wider. One of the other things that's being done to help with remote communities, which are typically Alaska Native majority, is we've been bringing some 21st century economic development assistance without charge either to Rotary of any consequence and without cost to those communities through partnering with a federally funded university consortium out of Utah with District 5010 E-Club Rotarian Don Albrecht, who's its director. And they've been bringing that to a number of the rural villages. So far, with Brenda Hewitt in particular, being very active and hands-on with that. And those include to date, Nanana, Minto, and Haynes, which are all wrapped up and concluded with their long-term development plans, and then McGrath and very possibly Uzinki moving forward this spring. It's a several-month process, and it basically gives them economic development assistance and direction. And I'm very pleased to mention that John Torgerson, the chair of the Denali Commission, just retired, has signed on to provide major assistance with this project out in the villages in terms of helping them take the broad direction that is the initial product and helping them develop business plans and contacts to really implement it on a very direct business to business level. Then, you know, Mr. Torgerson is going to be a very strong addition to that. And then we have continuing in their second year, the Veteran Suicide Prevention and Support Project and the Stop Human Trafficking projects that have been spearheaded by immediate past District Governor Cheryl Mativa and Marty Mativa, current District Governor designate. So we have quite a number of things we've had on the plate that we're moving forward with on a district level to really make Alaska, particularly the more remote areas of Alaska, a better place.
Joe, may I add something to
Yes.
the second the second bullet on the FASD project and the veteran suicide prevention. I'm going to do an update here shortly on the International Assembly, and one of the things that you're going to see is these align very, very directly with the next Rotary International President's theme for the year and some of his major objectives. Mental health has been put right up at the top of the list of objectives here. And I think you made a comment at the start of your presentation that one thing we typically find ourselves doing in this district is we kind of step out ahead of much of the rest of the Rotary world.
Yeah.
We certainly have done that with some of the leadership we've had here. But at the end of the day, this is just another example of that. So I'll share more on that in a bit. So next slide.
So kudos to PDG Diane and PDG Cheryl on that for being ahead of the curve as well.
Yes,
I think that's the last slide.
it is. Okay.
I will briefly mention we have finalized our 501c3 district foundation, which is basically a conduit for direct project donations, a conduit into Rotary for direct project donations that we would not otherwise receive. It's not something that can go off on its own as a rogue organization. It's directly answerable to the board of directors. It's an approved 501c3 with everything done. And it's a way to just go and further what we're doing with the projects. Mike, we're ahead of schedule. Thank you.
I know it's absolutely amazing. And I think this speaks to the efficiency of the current district leadership. Okay. All right. Never mind. All right. Let's go back to the presentation here and find the right one. Okay. All right. So let me close that one. And I'm going to, are we still screen sharing? Everybody see that?
No,
No.
Mike.
Nope. Okay. I've got to go back to, I got to hit the little green button again. All right. Now I'm working on this. Peggy usually does not let me play with the digital equipment. All right, so we're going to do this and we're going to go to the next presentation. So we are going to now turn the virtual microphone over to District Governor Mike Ferris. I was able to obtain a wonderful photo of what is now dubbed the Ferris Glacier. This apparently is in Petersburg, Alaska. We have a brief intro here that I would like to share with you that was apparently received from interstellar space sometime yesterday evening. So here we go.
Rotary in the last frontier. These are the shenanigans of the Rotary District Governor of District 5010. His one-year mission to explore all Rotary clubs, to seek out new projects and new Rotarians, to boldly imagine Rotary like no one has done before.
If it gets any better than that, you're going to have to explain it to me. If for those of you who aren't looking at Mike Ferris closely, you ought to put it on speaker view and check out his uniform here. So live long and prosper, sir.
Rotarians, I'm transmitting from the Starship Ferris at the center of the District 5010 universe. On the intro, you did not get to hear the background music. It really didn't come through of Star Trek. I'm wearing a red shirt today, not my command shirt. This is Mike Pollan's meeting. I'm hoping I will get through the presentation. Anybody knows Star Trek? When you're wearing a red shirt, you have a 50-50 chance of being killed by a phaser. So I'm hoping I'll make it through my whole presentation. Club visits have been absolutely fantastic. I've been to 36 to 37 clubs. The only one I haven't been to, I won't mention them by name, but they sound very much like a famous golfer with the first name of Arnold. As you go through clubs, I encourage everybody to go visit them. Last week I was in Juneau. I got a makeup at the Juneau Club, the Juneau Gastro Club. It's just fantastic to get to see other Rotarians, hear what they're doing. We have so many great clubs in our district. So I encourage you all to do that. It's really been the highlight of my year, is just the ability to go see all the clubs, get into the towns, see the projects and the impact they're making. Mike had mentioned, he introduced the assistant governors. Fantastic. What a great group of people we have. The great part about being district governors, I get to spend not just a couple minutes with them, but I got to spend days with them as we went through community to community and just get to know them and all the stuff that they do. If you have questions, want to know something, I mean, that's your first line. Go to your president, go to your AG. They're going to run it up through the district. Either we'll know it at the district, or if we don't, we'll be able to find, somebody further up in Rotary that can help you. So we need to continue to appreciate them for all that they do and use them. And Mike will talk probably more about that. That's a big focus of his year coming up. Joe talked a little bit about AFN. What a great experience we had. We just had a booth. We had a little portable unit. It was about 2 by 2 by 2 that we had there, and everybody was coming up and looking at it. And almost right across from us was the Alaska State Defense Force, who is managing 2 of those units right now. And we talked to, I think, the general, and he was more than happy, if it's available, the unit in Wasilla, to actually bring it to AFN next year. Well, we'll have the full system there. That will take up our whole booth and give everybody in the Native community the opportunity to see some of the great work we are doing for our district. Joe talked about the 501(c) being set up. It's going to be a great opportunity. People that want to contribute to the district, not to your foundation, but to the district, and still get a charitable contribution from it will be pretty dang cool. I don't know if it's a sad note, but a note of interest. We're actually closing one of our clubs at the end of the year. And I tell everybody, I mean, you can look at me today. If we're not having fun in Rotary, we're doing something wrong. We need to make sure we're having fun. And when we get to such a small group that there's 1 or 2 people in a club doing all the work and they're not having fun, let us know. I mean, there's other places in Rotary. There's other clubs. There's an E-club. We're here to work with you and make sure clubs are vibrant, are having fun. And if for some reason you're not, talk to us. We're here to help and give you options. Diane will talk a little bit later about big foundation stuff that's going on in our district, but I just got to highlight, I think yesterday, through December, some of the things that are happening in our district I wanted to share with you. We have 16 new donors to the foundation, 11 from the Juneau Gastino Club, 1 more from Juneau, 2 from out of state E-club members, and 2 from the Valley. We have 2 new people that reach major donor status. 1 person, major donor level 2, and 1 person, major donor level 4. So that's pretty dang cool for 5010. We have 54 people in our district that had a change in Paul Harris. 54 of them. 9 were from Anchorage, 16 from Juneau, 15 from Fairbanks, 1 from Ketchikan, 1 from Kodiak, 10 from the Valley. We had 7 brand new Paul Harris fellows just in December. So it is pretty awesome that what we're doing as a district. I want to, as I go around, all the clubs are different. Every club has their nuances, what they do. Some are more check writing clubs, some are more hands-on clubs. We need to continue to understand what our club is and what do our members want, and to be able to change. and adapt to them. I told every club I visited, when's the last time you had a visioning session? Go out, have a visioning session, bring that visioning Kim in, find out where your club wants to go and keep them on track and go there. Just because we were doing something 5-6 years ago, every club I go to continues to bring new people in. It might not still be the focus of where the club wants to go now. So go out and ask people and do that. Again, it's so fantastic as you go around the district and all the projects that the clubs are doing, and every club has its focus and a niche that they found that they like to help in. So embrace that and do that. And just lastly, I want everybody to imagine Rotary. Imagine what you want that club to look like. Boldly go out where you've never gone before with your Rotary Club. And as a colleague of mine says, live long and prosper. Thanks, Mike.
Very good. Well, thank you, DG Joe. That was stunning. And you went through in warp speed, and so we're even a little further ahead of schedule. So nicely done.
Efficiency. It's all about efficiency.
It is about efficiency. So good work. All right, back to the gallery view here. Okay, so we are doing great on the agenda. The next item that we have up is an update on the International Assembly. So for everybody on the screen that is a PDG, you will know quite well what the International Assembly is, although we had to unfortunately not hold it during the COVID years for several years. What the International Assembly is, this is the training program for the district governors-elect from the entire world. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show I'll pull up another PowerPoint here. Okay, and so let me share a screen, and here we go. Okay, so the event now, the International Assembly, is held in Orlando, Florida. Previously, this was held in San Diego, and in fact, back in was it 2011, Peggy? I think that anyway, she went to the International Assembly, and I went as a spouse. So this is when Peggy was to become the district governor. She was the DGE, and boy, I'll tell you what, it was intense. I'm just attending as a spouse. There were spouse sessions, and it was kind of interesting. And I did sit in on a couple of the training programs that they had for the DGs, DGEs. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is intense with a capital I. And I was a little bit I'm a little cautious about going into this one. I was curious to see how this one would be a little different. And what was interesting is in this event in Orlando, which is held at this huge hotel complex, is the Rosen Shingle Creek Hotel and Conference Center. This sits on 160 acres of land. They have their own golf course. I mean, it's quite the facility. They scheduled the events so that it was a little more relaxed. There was a little space between the events. You could actually step outside and soak up some sunshine before you had to go into the next breakout session or general assembly and so forth. But anyway, I thought this was a wonderful venue. So Brenda Sheldon, Marty Mativa, you guys are going to have an opportunity to be there. We'll chat further down the road about what I recommend you bring, but definitely you want to bring some sunglasses. So this is great. So this is what International Assembly is. This is the most important training program globally for the Rotary District Governors elect. And there are 550 district governors, because there are 550 districts in the world. And the goal of Rotary International is to bring them all together in one place at one time. And for the better part of a week, they're all being trained in how to become a district governor, what's going on in Rotary. And boy, you meet the leadership. Every single Rotary officer, the current president, a number of the past presidents of Rotary International, the president-elect, and we even met the president-elect nominee, who I'll introduce to you here in just a moment. All of the directors, the board of directors, it's a very large board. These are basically all of the districts are grouped into what are called zones. And I believe we have a total of, well, there's 2 zones is served by 1 director, and we have 18 directors that just serve the zones. Plus you have all the Rotary officers that are in it, and the General Secretary, John Thuco, the Rotary Foundation officers, and all of the trustees, which is almost an equally large board, were in attendance. And you meet these people, you sit with them, and you have meals with them, and you have programs with them, and you talk to them for the week. You literally learn everything that you could possibly stuff into your head about Rotary from the people that are literally driving the program down the road. There's 4 days of general sessions. They actually had 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, except the last day where they just had 1 in the morning. So there were 7 general sessions and then breakout sessions. And the breakout sessions basically were, they had some for, of course, the spouses and partners as well, but a very intense set of those for the individuals. I'll talk more about those in a moment, but there were a number of other events, so we'll look at those. Interestingly enough, the general sessions, and this is just like the Rotary International Convention, is simultaneously interpreted in 7 languages. So besides English, it's Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, French, Korean, Chinese, and Japanese. And they give everybody in one of these interpreting, basically an interpreter little device you can take and sit there. And of course, the people that are speaking English were thinking, nah, we probably won't need this. But guess what? One of the presentations was in Japanese, one of the presentations was in Spanish, and another one was in French. And by golly, we broke them out and, plugged in the little translators, and the speed, quality, and accuracy of the translation, it's like you're sitting in the United Nations. It was stunning. It's absolutely incredible. Now, the training leaders, most of whom are past district governors, had been there for an entire week and preparing for this session. So talk about some wonderful presenters. So the Rotary International president-elect is R. Gordon R. McAnally. He is from Scotland, and so note the pants. They actually had a Scottish dinner, one of the banquet events, and quite a few of the people showed up in kilts. No, I didn't. Thank you for asking. I probably should have, though. I'm actually half Scotch-Irish, and a friend of mine once told me that's half of you wants to drink and the other half doesn't want to pay for it. But at the end of the day, it was fun to watch. They actually had music by a traditional Scottish band, and boy, it was just what a great event. So President-elect Gordon is actually in the International Assembly. He presents his theme for the year, and this was one of the most
Did you
anticipated.
put a piece of cheese on the chicken patty? He'd
Piece of
like
cheese
that.
on the chicken patty? I think we need to mute somebody. Anyway, bottom line is the theme that he presented is called Creating Hope in the World. Now, the way he presented this was just, it was incredibly humorous. He started out and he was showing a picture of 3 bridges crossing some fjord in Scotland, and they had been made in different eras. I mean, one of them was like from the late 1800s, and then the 1900s, and one that was, I think, almost built in the current millennium. But the bottom line is, he was going on and talking about these bridges and how they bridge from this shore to the other shore, and they pass through the ages and create all these linkages. And everybody's sitting there going, "Oh my God, the theme's going to be about bridges!" And all of a sudden, this PowerPoint presentation, the whole bridge slide just boom, blows up. And he says, "But that's not what we're going to do." And I thought it was pretty funny the way he presented it. And I was in an organization years ago in the water business, and one of our themes for one of our international conventions was building bridges with Latin America, construyendo puentes con America Latina. And I was thinking, oh, wow, the bridge thing. And then he blew it up. So this is what we got. And he told stories about creating hope in the world. And wow, I have to tell you, this guy's delivery is just absolutely amazing. He's got a powerful presence. He's incredibly sincere, and boy, you have a chance to talk to him one-on-one, and I did that. It was interesting. He actually stopped me outside between two of the breakout sessions, and he came over and he shook my hand. And he says, Mike, how are you enjoying the program? And I said, oh, this is fabulous. I said, I love your theme. I think this is absolutely great. And of course, I'm trying to scurry to the other side of this huge hotel. And I start to break away, and he grips my hand a little harder and hangs on, and he talks to me some more. And 2 or 3 times, it's like how, you sort of shake hands too long with somebody, and he kept shaking my hand and just asking questions until he was certain that he and I were communicating. But anyway, so this is International Assembly. This is what you get to do. You get to meet these people. You really understand what they're about, and you really understand how their theme is going to drive Rotary for the year. Now, he describes several emphasis areas, and of course, creating hope in a troubled world. You should know there was, as they're introducing, they do the Rotary International flag entrance, where everybody is basically, they go through all the flags of all the Rotary countries. And when they hit the one for Ukraine, you got 700 people in a standing ovation. So talk about creating hope in a troubled world. The amazing thing is, and we learned this from General Secretary John Hugo, who is from Ukraine. His wife is actually a Ukrainian national, Margot. And in Ukraine, Rotary is growing in the midst of the war. One of the themes that there was a whole general session that was devoted to this is empowering girls and women. And they really are trying to make this a theme of Rotary internationally. This is very interesting because it was actually the presentation that was in Japanese was a Japanese woman who was a past district governor. And they were talking about empowering women. Now, Japan is one of those places that has very traditional Rotary clubs, and it's been an all-male situation for a long time. And that is now beginning to open up. And it was very interesting hearing the perspective from a traditionally male Rotary country on empowering women. So this is a theme. You're going to hear a lot about this in the coming year. And amazingly, the one on mental health is another major emphasis area. And I'm not going to tell you how it was presented. If any of you end up going to the Rotary International Convention in Melbourne, and in Australia, and I would certainly recommend you consider doing that. If Gordon presents how he introduced this theme, I don't want to destroy the ending for you. Anyway, these are the areas, and as I mentioned before in Joe's presentation, the mental health theme, we're out ahead here. The FASD project that Diane has, the veteran suicide prevention program that Cheryl has, and many of the projects that we have are focusing on this, and this is going to be one of Rotary International's main themes this next year. And when I shared what we were doing in our district with some of the other district governors-elect, they were just, wow, you guys are already doing this. So here's a little bit more about what's going on with this. This is the current Rotary International president, Jennifer Jones. Lovely lady, brilliant. She is just an amazing presenter. She's from Canada, but she's very, very globally focused and oriented. What a great first female leader for Rotary International that we've ever had. And so she introduced the Rotary International Board of Directors. They filled the stage twice. Again, this is a very big board. They bring out the directors, they bring out their partners, they introduce each one at a time. And here with their hands up, this is Drew Kessler and his wife, Vicky. They are the Zone 28 and 32 director and spouse. And that's our zone. We are in Zone 28. So had a chance to meet Drew and talk to him and work with him in the GETS program in Toronto. And of course, we had a lot of conversations in this program. And we're going to be sharing a program that's going to happen, yes, right here in the great state of Alaska. Diane Fegis is going to talk about this later on, which is a zone program. It's called Life on Land. And we had the first half of this was called Life Underwater. And it was held on a cruise that went from New York City to Bermuda. And it was done mostly on a ship. And then we went ashore in Bermuda and had a chance to plant mangrove trees. And back on the ship for the rest of the program, we had a great chance to work with Drew and talk to him. And he had some of his family there with him as well, which was a great opportunity to get to know them better. So the Rotary International President-elect, of course, is Gordon from Scotland. And the Rotary International President-elect nominee is Stephanie Urchik. She will be the second female president of Rotary International. She is a doctor, a medical professional from Pennsylvania. And boy, talk about smart, just powerful at the podium. She is going to be, she'll be the Jennifer Jones #2. So we are going to have some very interesting diversity, if you will, in the Rotary International leadership coming down the road here. So they had several general sessions, one of which was announcing the theme. And this was one on youth programs and empowering women. This young lady, Taylor Huey, was a presenter at the Toronto Zone GETS program. And she did a presentation on Rotaract and on Interact. And it's incredible, it's powerful, and it's very timely because there's a huge emphasis on youth. Just so you know, in the Toronto program, after the program was over, Peggy and I went up, had a chat with Taylor, and we said, how would you like to come to the state of Alaska to Zone 5010? And she went, ooh, Alaska, got all excited. And she says, yeah, let's talk about that. So she has been invited to be one of our keynote speakers for the district conference, which will be in Fairbanks in 2024. More on that later. So the breakout sessions, there were 2 or 3 per day for the DGEs, separate sessions for the partners. Peggy could probably tell you more about that. The partner sessions, they had groups that were experienced partners in terms of their experience with Rotary. They maybe been, as Peggy was, a PDG or club presidents, or certainly at least been Rotarians or are Rotarians, and others that were complete novices. They really didn't even know what Rotary was about. Were scratching their head, what in the heck their spouse was into here. Look at this. So they had those programs. But these were the breakout sessions, and each one of them there would be the order of 14 to 16 people. And these were also done in multiple languages. So they had separate sessions, French and Italian and Portuguese and Korean and Japanese and so forth. And the sessions that I attended, of course, were in English. The session leader here is a past district governor from Ukraine. His English was flawless. So he basically, they would lead the session and they would talk about the whatever that particular program is, and you'll see the little green name tents in front, and you would introduce yourself and where you're from, and it was an open discussion and really incredibly powerful learning opportunity. So this is how and all of these are these are my peeps, as Peggy says. These are the DGEs, my colleagues for the coming year from all over the world. And we were fortunate to have nearly 500 of the 550 actually in attendance. The others are doing something separately that's being done, was done remotely after this program. Boy, banquets. It was just amazing. So this was the one you see on the left here. this was the Scottish party where they had the dancing and the Scottish music that was being played, and really wonderful. Lots of folks in kilts. So we ended up being assigned to a table, and we were sitting with this group from Korea, and I was just really we were having a great time just talking to them, and of course English was a little halting. My Korean is pretty short. Gamsamnida, thank you in Korean. That's one of the first things I said when I sat down, and the gentleman on my left hands me his card. I said Gamsamnida. He throws his hands up. He says, "Oh, you speak Korean?" So that's my whole vocabulary. That's what you get. But we had a nice conversation, and then there's a family behind us that was from Taiwan. The lady in red is actually the district governor, and her husband, and then two of her sons were part of the group here. And so we had a great conversation in Taiwanese and Korean, a little bit of English. I shared some photos of, they served salmon. And so I showed some photos of what real salmon looks like. Had a great photo of Peggy's, my eldest son, John, holding up a 65-pound king salmon that he had dip netted out of Chittenden this year, and showed them some other red salmon and so forth. And so it was funny that they said, "Oh, real salmon, that's what real salmon is." And I said, "Yeah, this is from Alaska. We're salmon snobs." So anyway, the bottom line is it was just a great opportunity to exchange. Turns out the guy on my left is one of the Rotary Foundation trustees elect. And so I watched him walk up on the stage a couple of days later, and I went, "Oh, okay." Hadn't made that connection yet. So you just don't know. It's pretty amazing, but great people. And then there was a whole cultural exchange. And in this event, each one of the zone regions, so 2832, as you see there, had a booth. And in the booth, you could have, you could show, what the culture was, and have different kinds of props, and people could take photos. So this was our booth. And by the way, our zones 28 and 32 extends from Alaska through all of Canada into the parts of the US, particularly the northeastern US. It goes all the way to Bermuda. So we span quite a piece of the geography of the North American continent and clear out into the Atlantic. So Peggy brings her new beautiful hand-sewn Eskimo parka, and the hat this guy's wearing is a nice fox fur hat that our younger son had made up for me at David Green Furriers in Anchorage, famous David Green. And so we brought it down, and I don't know how many people put those on and just had the biggest kick out of putting on in Alaska. Some Alaska where almost every one of them, when they put Peggy's parka on, would do a little shivering thing, and they thought that was pretty cool. So this was basically what this was all about. It was just a lot of really neat exchange. So one of the other things they had, of course, they had an area where there was a lot of display going on. They had many of the vendors. Russell Hampton was there, others. And then they had the End Polio Now booth. And this was an iron lung. And I had never actually walked up to one of these before. I was kind of surprised how small it was. It looks kind of big in the picture because I got kind of close to it when I took the photo here. But that thing is maybe, I don't know, 2 feet, 2.5 feet in diameter, and probably only about 4.5 feet long. And it's pretty amazing. But the polio presentation, they did, of course, an update on the Rotary Foundation. They talked about that. I was pretty amazed that one of the statistics, 80% of the Rotarians in the entire world do not donate to the Polio Plus program. Only 20% do. That surprised me. But anyway, that's something we're going to talk more about that coming up in a little bit. And then, of course, as I mentioned before, you step outside in the Florida sunshine between the sessions, and we had some official vitamin D absorption training that Peggy and I participated in. So that, folks, I'm going to stop sharing that. And that is International Assembly. So the key here is the International Assembly sets the theme. And one of the things that is encouraged by the Rotary International president is to try to build that theme into your district programs for the year. And so that brings me to my next presentation. I'll pause here for just a second. Does anybody have any questions about the International Assembly, or if anybody does, again, just use the reaction app and raise your hand. Okay. Yeah, Andre.
Yeah, Mike, you mentioned that 80% of Rotarians worldwide do not contribute to the Polio Plus. I'm wondering if there was any breakdown of that, comparing North American giving to Polio Plus versus the rest of the world. Because I think that when you look at a lot of Rotary Foundation projects and whatnot, many of them are funded by clubs in North America. Is there any further data that they shared with you?
There is further data, but no, they did not get into the fine detail that far. I'm sure that's available and should be pretty accessible, but I suspect you're right. And I think that what we probably will, what we'll see is more clarification on it. There's some very interesting things happening with the polio program right now. And we're going to have an update a little bit later on in this program from Becky Erickson, who is our Polio Plus Society chair in Alaska. So thank her for that. Peggy.
One of the things that I took away from this whole experience, which was really neat, was Mike was talking about how Gordon wouldn't stop shaking his hand. One of the things he mentioned from the podium was that he is going to work with Rotarians. He is not a president that, kind of says, okay, this is what you need to do, go do it, this type of thing. But he really wants to get involved with what every Rotarian is doing, and he's interested in it. And he's just really a real person. He's not like this icon up there in the sky type of thing. So I'm hoping that we can get him to Alaska somehow.
And you'll notice that Peggy and I have our matching theme logo wear on here. Create hope in the world. And to remember that, and I don't know why my head does this, but every time I see something like that, I make an acronym out of it. And create hope in the spells CHIT. And so CHIT. So it's a CHIT world we're going to be in. So create hope in the world. Anyway, I probably left that out. Peg, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments on the International Assembly? And once again, Brenda and Marty, oh my goodness, just open your mind, soak it up, and just absolutely enjoy it. There's so much, and it comes in so fast, but it's really a powerful moment to really build your energy and your capacity to be a district governor. So with that. All right. Let's continue on. Okay, so the next piece of the agenda here, I'm going to close that one. All right. So this is the, can you see this on the screen? Anybody?
No, Mike.
Nope. Okay. Once again, I find myself not sharing the screen. So let me put this one up first. Okay, so this is where we're at in the program right now, is we're doing International Assembly update. And the next thing I want to talk about is the goals and priorities for fiscal year 24. The picture here, by the way, this was part of the field testing of one of the emergency water plants, which is on the trailer behind me there. We're actually at the Tanana Lakes project, which is one of our Rotary clubs. It's a playground called a play park that we're constructing. So we were able to roll up to the lake and actually test the water there. So let me get out of that one, and then I'm going to open goals and priorities. All right. Okay, so for fiscal year 24, the goals and priorities, this is something that I've been doing a lot of thinking about. I actually already had one of the major priorities, or a couple of these actually, all the way back to when I first applied to be and interviewed for district governor, and those are still there. I've added a few, and I was able to really hone these in the International Assembly. And then after that, with a little further development at the Blue Denim training program for the whole DG lines for all of the 10 districts that are part of the Pacific Northwest Pets. That's what the Blue Denim is about. There's about 60 of us that attended that. I actually tuned it up a little bit further. So this is what I am planning for this next year. These are the goals and the priorities that I want to go ahead and emphasize for our district. So in theme, I want to build the Create Hope in the World theme into both club and district activities. And something that Gordon McAnally asked the district governor-elects to do is, when you go back, inspire your clubs to take this theme and see if they can imagine somewhere in one of their projects, one of their programs, where Create Hope is part of that project. Take it to the club level, take it to the Rotarian level. And there's going to be more on this. This is going to be one of the things I'm going to talk about at the Pacific Northwest Pets that will be coming up here in a couple of weeks down in Seattle. And this is such a fine theme. There was almost everybody that I talked to was just really excited about it. So we're going to build it into our activities for the year. The second priority I have is engage the entire District 5010 leadership team. And we have, Joe talked about this, Mike talked about it as well in his DG presentation. We have very, very good communication with all the DG line, we call it. And that collaboration means that there is continuity from one year to the next. We are carrying forward programs that were created. We talked about the Rotary Cares for Kids program. That was Harry Keeling. And we're still working on that program. But more directly now, the programs that have been put forth, for example, with Cheryl Matiba, we're continuing to carry those projects forward. But I'm here to tell you, every time we have a need to fill a chair, anytime we know we've got a major new position that's we're going to have somebody fill in the district, I reach out to Brenda and Marty, and usually Mike as well, and we talk about this, because that person, if there is a 3-year term, they are going to be in their terms as well. And I want to make sure they're in agreement and that we have somebody that's going to be, we're all going to be able to work with. A very key element of this is working closely with the assistant governors. I want the assistant governors to be the primary advocates and resource for the clubs that they serve in their areas. And what I'm hoping is that we get back to at least a quarterly, or probably, if we can, a monthly meeting between the assistant governors and the presidents in their area. When I communicate to the presidents, I'm going to communicate through the assistant governors. I want them to carry the message. I want them to be part of the delivery of that. And what I want them to be able to do is to be able to tap resources for those presidents in their area faster than I can, because as everybody knows, when you get to the level of district governor, it's almost an overwhelming amount of stuff that's going on. I want those assistant governors to be the resource. They will have access to the resources that we need, that the presidents need, and they're going to be part of moving those resources into the clubs as quickly as they possibly can. And so I'm going to definitely use that. And that is something that I want to strengthen and emphasize. And again, the collaboration between the DG line, and equally as important, I really want to work with the committee chairs. We've got a lot of district committee programs. Some of these are kind of quiet. They don't do very much. Some of these are more energetic, and that has a lot to do, I guess, with the people that are driving the programs and how they play into the whole Rotary universe. We have a very strong foundation team. We'll talk more about that. We're going to hear a presentation on that by Diane Fegis here in a while. But some of the committees are a little more quiet, and they could take some energizing. And one of the things I definitely want to do is, I'm going to emphasize this at PETS, is I want the presidents-elect to go back to their clubs. And if they have somebody that is a champion for public image, I want them to also be on the public image committee in the district. If they have somebody that is just, you know, an advocate for membership, likewise. If they have a strong interest in youth programs, same answer. I want those people to step up, work on the district level committees, and we need to build a co-chair or chair, vice chair arrangement with the committees so that there's leadership transitioning and job shadowing as we transition from one year to the next. So that's part of the plan. The third area, I want to work with the districts, district clubs, and make sure they can access district or global grants. And one specific objective, and this was one of the ones that I had when I first applied to be the district governor, I want particularly those clubs that have never done this before, clubs that have never really bothered to fill out a district grant application, which is not terribly difficult. You have to kind of know what you're doing, and you have to have gone through the grants seminar so that you have the memorandum of understanding that says, yes, when I receive the grant funds, I will make sure that I take good care of those, are going to be managed in a proper account, and that I will report what I do and get the thing done in the stated timeline. But I want all clubs in the district, and particularly those that have not accessed district grants before, I want them to feel the energy that their club gains when they take a district grant, a few $1,000s, blend that with money from their own district, from their own club, and go out and do a project that maybe they've done before, but all of a sudden they make that project twice as big and maybe even more of a multiplication factor impactful in their community. So this is one of the things that I want to do. And why are we doing this? Because it builds enthusiasm in the club and the satisfaction of individual Rotarians. It really shows people why they're in Rotary. They feel it. They basically are drinking the Kool-Aid. So what I'm hoping here is that we can make the grant access more universal, and particularly clubs that haven't done it in a while or maybe have never accessed a district grant. And towards that end, one of the things you should know is that the finance committee, and backed by the board of directors, actually instructed by the board of directors, I should say, and with the support of the excess reserve subcommittee of the finance committee, this last year we took an additional $29,000 out of excess reserves, added that to the district grants so that we would be able to increase the district grants to nearly $100,000 available. And we have used all those funds, and we had a wide range of excellent projects that are going on in the district right now and will continue on through the rest of this year. But what the goal is for the next several years is to take excess reserves funds and backfill a bit of a gap that we have that came as a part of the COVID era. People's contributions to the foundation fell off during COVID. And when those contributions fall off, what happens is the foundation contributions that they make to the annual fund, 3 years later, half of that comes back as district grant funds, or as DDF, district designated funds, that we can use for whatever purposes, for our projects, for district grants. And because there was a fall off, instead of having, in the 90,000 plus dollar availability for district grants, well, that fell off. And we backfilled that with our, fortunately, fairly solid excess reserves we still carry forward. And we were able to grow that back into nearly 100,000, like I say, but we're going to continue to do that for the next several years. We already know that the grant funding, the DDF has fallen off. Because in my year, the 3 years ago was the middle of COVID. In Brenda's year, it was coming out of COVID, and the grant contributions, the funding to the foundation went back up a little bit, but there's still going to be a gap. So for the next 2 years, one of the objectives is to backfill that and make close to $100,000 available each year for district grants. And then very, very importantly in this, and this could actually be a separate item all by itself. We've got to publicize what we do. Rotary is one of the best kept secrets in the world. Don't know why that should be, but it certainly is. And we got to do better than that. Now, we've actually had some public image programs. A year or so ago, we actually had a public broadcasting, some television broadcasting that went out in the South Central area. We had another one followed up in the Fairbanks area. And we actually got Rotary out there with some, basically just some PSA-like presentations. Some of these were actually paid for. And we ended up having an opportunity to spread the word a little more. And more on that here as we work on through this. Okay, the fourth goal here is expanding youth programs in our district and experimenting with new club formats. So youth programs, the picture you see here, if any of you attended the district conference in Talkeetna, you probably remember this presentation. These are youth exchange alumni. Some of these were from other countries that came to visit our district conference. The fellow in the back holding the microphone, Oleg Gintout from Poland. He was actually an exchange student for our club. Peggy and I hosted him, and what a wonderful young man. But they returned and they shared their stories. The other fellow in the back row is one of the returning alumni who was an outbound from our district. And talk about just amazing, worldly experienced young people with extremely high energy and motivation. But this is what we're looking at here. And one of the things in the expanding youth programs is I would like to increase not only the number of Rotaract and Interact clubs in our district, but the viability of those clubs. I want to re-energize them. And one way that I think we could do this, and this was something that was talked about at the International Assembly, reach out to your alumni. Go out and seek out those that have been in youth exchange as outbounds, have come back. And we have many people in our Rotary clubs that are Rotarian members right now, including some in leadership, that were youth exchange or group study exchange. That program has been changed to the vocational technical training program. But the bottom line is the alumni that come back, boy, they're knowledgeable about Rotary. They have the skills, the motivation, and we need to tap them. And we have not done a very good job of tapping the alumni from the youth programs, but I want to do that. I want to build a new foundation for the youth exchange program. And basically what I'm talking about here, this program basically was stopped for all essential purposes in the COVID era. So for several years, it just abruptly shut down. The committee was kept alive. The program kept moving along. Jeff Johnson did what he could to try and keep things motivated here, but it's just now coming back alive. We have a very small group of outbound, and we have a little bit larger group of inbound, which is, I think, maybe the first time that's happened. But we're going to hear a really wonderful update by the leadership of the Youth Exchange program, and we have a new co-chair this year. And bless their hearts, Jamie and Chris Letterman from the District 58 Innovators at Juneau are going to take over the leadership of this program. Jamie is actually the listed chair in Rotary Club Central. You can only put one person in, but both Chris and Jamie are going to be very active in this. And they've been involved in this program for a long time. So the opportunity is to rebuild the program, to build a new shift in the program and new emphasis, and just grow it back to what it was before. We've had a very excellent YE program in the past, and that opportunity exists again. Okay, and then the last item in this is possible single focus clubs or new satellite clubs. The club models that Rotary International is allowing to come alive now. Basically, if you have a good idea for a club format, you can actually probably get it approved. This is very easy to do, but we have a lot of opportunity here. Mike mentioned the fact we have one Rotary club that basically has Their members voted and they're just going to discontinue. It's down on the Kenai Peninsula, but nearly all the Rotarians are joining other clubs. So it's going to strengthen other clubs. Some are joining the other clubs in that area. Some are joining the E Club. And so the Rotarians want to stay with the program, but the club just didn't work for them. But what I've seen in some areas is the clubs, if it's small and it's hard to grow, the Rotarians get weary a bit. But think about taking those and moving them into the format of a satellite club. And that's happened in a couple of places in our district. But there's a possibility for some mergers perhaps. But the goal here is we need to keep the Rotarians. I'm not as worried about the number of clubs as I am about making sure that we have Rotarians that are enjoying what they're doing. They're productive. They are doing service projects, participating, and that's what we need to do. So if we can have a club style that will emphasize that, let's give it a spin. So one of the goals, of course, is I would very much like to increase the support of the Rotary Foundation and specifically the Polio Plus program. And one of the things that I mentioned before is that half of the Rotary Foundation contributions, and this is to the annual fund is what it's called, they return to the district after 3 years. When Peggy was the district governor, she used to talk about how many organizations do you know in the world you give your money to, and then they turn around 3 years later and give it back to you. Well, one, Rotary. But the problem is like I say, during pandemic, the Rotary Foundation contributions fell off. You didn't have the live meetings and the enthusiasm for, donations, and foundation events just didn't happen. And so that now has impacted us. And here we are 3 years later, but it's coming back. And boy, I'll tell you what, as District Governor Mike said, the donations to the Rotary Foundation are solid, strong, growing. A huge part of that has to do with the energy of our wonderful foundation committee. Ted Trueblood is basically the Paul Harris Society chair for the district. And boy, I'll tell you what, he has done a just yeoman service talking Rotarians into amping up to be a Paul Harris fellow or a Paul Harris Society member. And in Paul Harris Society, you are basically committing to donating $1,000 a year to Paul Harris to the Rotary Foundation. Similarly, we have the Polio Plus Society. The Polio Plus Society basically is $100 a year promised donation to that particular program. Becky Erickson is our Polio Plus chair, and she knocked it out of the ballpark this year. I'm here to tell you. We have so many new Polio Plus Society members, and this is not a universal Rotary program. This is done in the districts. Some zones have this, but this is basically by district. And our district right now is really amping this up. And to make all this sort of work, I really want to encourage the clubs to get back into holding foundation events. And that's the key to this. And then lastly, increasing an outreach to rural Alaska with both club and district projects. So we've actually done a pretty good job of this. We talked about the Rotary Water Project. We talked about the Economic Development Project. And even, our Rotary Cares for Kids, that reaches out to the districts or to the rural parts of Alaska. But it's a great opportunity to expand partnerships with other organizations that are involved in the rural part of Alaska. It increases the awareness of Rotary in places where people may not know who we are. But boy, I'll tell you what they do now. And every time somebody walks up to one of these emergency water plants and walks up to fill their water jug, they're going to be staring at a District 5010 Rotary logo. And if they haven't asked the question before, they're probably going to ask then. And hopefully this will result in increased club membership from the Alaska Native community. One of the emphasis areas in the International Assembly was basically an outreach for DEI, they call it, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it was interesting. One of the speakers added a B to that, belonging. They want people to feel like they belong to their club. So diversity, equity, and inclusion, of course, this is depending on, where you are in the world, this has different meanings. But I stand back and I look at our district. We're about 50-50 male, female. We have a lot of young people in our Rotary clubs. We are actually pretty diverse. We're pretty inclusive. And I think we meet a lot of these goals. But the one thing which we have not done a particularly good job of is for the 18% of the population of the state of Alaska that is Alaska Native, we need a better representation of that group in our clubs. It's not like we don't have any, but it's like we need to up the ante on that. And so that's part of what this objective is about. Okay, so the last slide on here this is something that they emphasized in the International Assembly. And there was a whole session where they talked about maintaining your health, and not just your physical health, but your mental health while you go through the district governorship of your district. And they said, take care of yourself. Do something physical every day. Spend time with your family. Practice your recreational hobby activities. Stay focused on your work if you're working, and do what you do. And here is our order of priorities as it should be. Family is number one, always. Work, recreation, hobbies, number two, and then Rotary. And that's the order it needs to be in. And I have had people that we've talked to about trying to recruit them onto committees, and they say, boy, I've just, work is just so intense. We've all heard this, that I'm not going to have time for that. And they're always so apologetic. And this is now my standard mantra. And I said, that's fine. Your priorities are in order. It's family, work, Rotary. Take care of yourself, be healthful. And believe it or not, I went a little bit long, but thanks to the previous presenters, we are right on schedule. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we will go back to the gallery view here. And I'll pause for just a moment. And if anybody has any questions, comments, raise your virtual hand. Okay. All right. So what we have next is we have a 15-minute water, sanitation, and hygiene break. And this is one of the areas of focus of Rotary International. So focus for 15 minutes, people, and then we will restart at 11:45. It's 11:30 right now, so we are exactly on schedule. Thank you all. We'll talk to you again in about 15 minutes.